Hello everybody, this is your weekly energy and tarot report for, what are we, the 11th of October 2019 until the 18th of October 2019, and we are about to move into Mercury's shadow. Retrograde is upon us, the final retrograde of this year. The last two retrogrades were really difficult as far as my own personal experience, so I was a little apprehensive about this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, the last of the water signs that our retrogrades will go through this year. The fact of the matter is that I actually have done a lot of meditating on this and thought long and hard and sort of done a little bit of homework astrologically. And I feel that this is a completion cycle. We are in the last lap of a transformative year, one that has radically shifted how we see ourselves in the world. And this Scorpio retrograde, or Mercury in Scorpio retrograde, is essentially about intimacy. We may have worked very long and hard on our inner emotions and our subconscious processes during the Mercury retrograde in Pisces back in March. And then when Mercury was retrograde in Cancer in July, we perhaps experienced a correction and an in-depth pursuit of higher understanding of how we communicate with the outside world, how our neuroses and our inner workings have gotten in our way in terms of how we exist in the outside world. And this final one in Scorpio is all about intimacy, sexuality, the hidden realms, not so much in the esoteric sense as in the psychological sense. But there's something kind of appealing in a mysterious way about Scorpionic energy. And I think Scorpios get a bad rap. I know in my life I've experienced negative associations with Scorpionic leanings, and the more I've actually broken free of my own conditioning of experience, the more I've come to understand what the deeper implications of Scorpio are. It's not the notion of the closed off little scorpion waiting to sting if we come at them the wrong way. It is there's much more complexity and much more generosity in Scorpio than a lot of people are led to believe. So this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, given that we're also moving into Scorpio season, we're coming up to, well, we're still in the middle of Libra season, but there are several planets that have already made their way into Scorpio. We are looking at a shift towards the inner mystery and how that builds us in the outside world. It's about charm. but informed charm, not manipulative charm, real, authentic, genuine charm. And charm only has value when there's a subject to bestow charm upon. So think about that in your environment and in your experiences in the upcoming weeks. It's going to take us through to, Scorpio actually, the retrograde, Mercury retrograde won't come out of its shadow on the other end until I think late November. So this is a long period of Mercury in Scorpio. Don't be afraid of it. Be open and feel and be present. It's all about the present moment. If we haven't learned this yet, now is the perfect time to take advantage of this retrograde to really get into that notion of the power of now, the power of being in the present, of not defining ourselves by our disappointments and deceptions of the past and our fears of the future. There is only the present moment. I know it always seems like such a stunningly simplistic cliche, but it is the truth. And when you eliminate those attachments to things that don't exist in the past and in the future, life becomes a lot more simple and a lot more enriching. Interestingly, in our tarot reading this week, I did something very different. I was brought to do this because I tried doing a Celtic cross and it wasn't working. I pulled a couple of readings and I wasn't feeling it. It didn't seem authentic. It didn't seem muddled, and it didn't read for the collective. So I decided I'd just go instinctively and pull cards in a pyramid. I have no idea what I was thinking at the time, but it ended up being a past, present, future, an underlying spread. And it made perfect sense when I did it that way. And I just let the cards come as they would. I'm having a little bit of a different setup, as you can see too. You can actually kind of see the cards on the table today. And it's the evening, and I'm having a glass of wine, so cheers. Our underlying energy. We have the Five of Pentacles. This is about what we're letting go of. We've talked about this a lot, this entire cycle, and I know it does become repetitive, but obviously things don't resolve overnight. The Five of Pentacles is that card of poverty consciousness, and we, as it's the underlying energy, it's telling me that this week is the week of really, truly, and finally letting that go. I think a lot of us have been doing a lot of inner work, and we've been very conscious in our process. Healing our inner child is really what it comes down to. And I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was thinking about how do we heal the inner child? And I mean, it seems like a pretty daunting task, but if you really think about it, the only way to heal the inner child is to be the inner child. And to be the inner child, you have to talk to yourself like the inner child. And that is, what is the preeminent characterization of the childlike mind? Curiosity. And how does that manifest? I'm sure many parents would laugh at this, since they've probably been on the receiving end of this, but anybody who's been a caregiver to young children finds themselves with the endless loop of the question why. And most adults are a little arrogant, and they have the tendency not to actually think that children have the capacity to understand the answers that they give, and it seems like too much work to keep answering more questions why, and it actually often opens us up to the realization that some of these questions that children ask us, we haven't asked ourselves as adults. So we shut down, and we shut them down. Not cool. So if you were healing your inner child and you were saying to yourself, for example, where does my poverty consciousness come from? A child, well, they probably would have a hard time with the concept of poverty consciousness, but like, let's say, for example, if we ask the inner child, why are you afraid to be judged? And you ask that question, you answer that question to yourself. I'm afraid to be judged because I don't like the way it makes me feel. Well, why do you not like the way it makes you feel? Because it leads me to a place of poverty consciousness. And so on and so forth. And eventually we get to the point where we've actually answered, we come down to a bare bones exposure of what is at the core root of trauma, of neurosis, and of pain. And that allows us to confront it, and to then know that because we live in the present moment, there is no point in projecting risk management. And we just go out into the world and challenge ourselves to overcome the limitation. And that is what this entire reading is about. And it is about the process of that. Because in our past, we have the Star card, that beautiful wish card that shows us the woman in perfect balance between the conscious and the subconscious mind, with her flow into the 5 senses and then the 7 chakras above, and the ultimate star of enlightenment, clarified by the Knight of Cups. And the Knight of Cups is the authority of emotion. It is when we know ourselves in absolute fullness, and therefore we are able to tap into any part of our mind, any part of our emotional spectrum with self-assuredness. We have the Queen of Cups along with that. So you've got the yin and the yang, male and female, in perfect balance as a result of this inner work that we've done. And then we had the Ace of Wands and the Page of Pentacles come out together, which is all about opportunity. And it's the inspiration of the Ace of Wands clarified by the smallness and the slowness of the Page of Pentacles. There is intent, but it was a slow process. It took time to work through all of this stuff. And, you know, it's a long process. Long processes will deplete us or give us the impression of depletion. But when we are able to look back on it and we realize that we've moved beyond this dark, unfortunate victimhood, the slowness of that process makes sense, and we get to a point where we understand just how valuable taking our time to process our emotional struggles really is. In our present, we have the Hermit card. Again, going inwards and carrying the star within the lantern, knowing that it's by going inwards and spending time alone and spending time in quietness and peacefulness and in self-reflection that we tap into that perfect alignment of conscious and subconscious aspects of ourselves. And it was clarified by the Chariot, which is sort of double duty on that, because Chariot it's a card of movement, progress, but it is also a card of perfect alignment of the conscious and the subconscious minds. So this work, you've done your homework. Bravo, you have done your homework. We can all pat ourselves on the back. We've been through a lot. We've been forced to question so much. And there was a period of time where it really felt like we were just going to keep unraveling and never reap the rewards of the seeds that were sown, and that we were maybe falling into the dark recesses of the mind. But guess what? The fact that we have this in the present, the moon, is clearly partially a timestamp to the fact that Saturday, tomorrow, when I'm recording this, is the full moon in Aries. Aries is it's an action sign. It is the first sign of the zodiac, so it is all about birth. It is all about being raring to go and to take all of that energy and all the lessons that we've learned from those previous 12 lunar cycles to birth the amalgam of all of that knowledge. And it is clarified by the Nine of Pentacles, which is the card of self-contentment, inner balance, flow, bountifulness. And we also have in the present the Fool, another indication of that brand new cycle that we had last week. But the fact that we got the timestamp of the moon as a full moon tells me that this is it. This Mercury retrograde may be the last opportunity that we get to be retrospective, introspectively retrospective. And that Fool was clarified by the Six of Wands. I know you can't see those, so what difference does it make? But the Six of Wands and the Ace of Wands. The Ace of Wands being our truth, being ready to go out into the world after this whole process with our truth, armed with our truth, self-assured in our truth, stepping beyond the need for others to validate us, accompanied by the Six of Wands, which is the validation card. It is the victory card. So it's because we let go of that need to be validated, because we've done all of that work to come into our own sense of value, self-worth, that we receive the rewards from the outside world, because we're no longer living in expectation, but with intention. Intentionality versus expectation is a big deal, and it's one that this whole year has been about better understanding. Maybe not consciously for everyone, but if you sit down and think about what you've experienced and what you've learned, I think we'll all be able to agree that that is the fundamental lesson that we've learned. In our future, I very rarely read reversals, but this card literally went like this on the table. Whoop. So I kind of have to take it as a reversal. And thank goodness, because I don't really like the Seven of Swords. The Seven of Swords is the card of deception, of lacking boundaries, and in most cases, if we're really honest with ourselves, we like to play victim to the idea of deception, but most of the time when we are deceived by someone else, we've ultimately deceived ourselves. And this is usually a giant ego struggle. Because short of the actual material loss, should it be that kind of deception, which I don't think that this is what we're talking about here, it is the bruising of the ego that makes the act of being on the receiving end of deception so devastating to us. But when we let go of our perfectionism and we understand that there is no person on this earth who is not deceived in some shape or form, that the karmic flow means that there's always a lesson in everything that we experience. And if we are open to understanding that flow, we are consciously in a process of graduation and evolution at all times. And as it was clarified by the star again, everything about this is about coming into that perfect balance of the conscious and subconscious mind. Everything that we've been talking about in the last 2 or 3 readings, this process has been slow to build, but it has been an ongoing course of completion. And I think we can all feel it if we really sit with ourselves and we take a long, hard look at what we've experienced in the last 2 or 3 months, and also since the beginning of this year, obviously. And we'll understand that. Letting go of the idea of betrayal, letting go of the idea of how we deceive ourselves, and again, how we lack boundaries, and how we don't need to fight to put in place our boundaries when we are in perfect alignment and in perfect balance. In our future, the middling cards, which I can't really explain how I'm reading this, but these are basically, they lead in a story. So we've gone from letting go of this energy of self-deception, and it's exposed the I can'ts, it's exposed the limitations that we feel, and once again, these limitations manifest themselves through the devil energy, which is the self-indulgence, the self-destruction, the not choosing love, not choosing balance, not choosing what's good for us. The escapism due to that feeling, I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too ugly, I haven't been educated enough, I have screwed up in this way, I have debt, I have a broken heart, whatever it is, staying in that victim mode that we're not allowed to be in anymore because it doesn't serve us. And it was clarified by the Princess of Cups, which is actually the Page of Cups in the regular Rider-Waite deck. And that is an offering that is going to eliminate this. Because we have moved, or in our future energy, which really is upcoming in the week ahead, because we have moved beyond these restrictions and limitations, and because we have done this conscious practice of letting go of disillusionment and self-deception and poverty consciousness, and nurturing our inner child and coming into balance with who we are in the present moment, where who we were and who we will become do not have any value, because there is only the balance that we have in this present moment. And in understanding that, in unchaining ourselves from everything that has limited us up until this point, we come into, and we're getting a lot of double cards here, we're coming into the Nine of Cups and the Chariot. So again, the Nine of Cups in parallel to the Nine of Pentacles in our present. This is the material self-sustenance. This is feeling in terms of what we have in the outside world is enough for us. And this is that what we have on the inside is enough for us. Again, in perfect balance of the conscious and subconscious minds. And I clarified those last cards with the Two of Pentacles, which is the Juggler card, but it is the card of being in control of these two energies. That's the little like high from Libra at the end, because it is in this Kabbalistic deck, it is called the Lord of Harmonious Change. And it was accompanied by the Nine of Wands, which is the completion of this cycle named in this deck the Lord of Great Strength. It indicates that this wasn't easy. This was a grueling process, but one that was worth it. And congratulations to everybody, because this is truly your graduation. Now it's time to enjoy what you have accomplished and start walking in the new direction. And to help us get there, our animal oracle spirit card this week is Bee Spirit. Oh, the glare. There we go. Man, bees are kind of scary for me. Well, actually, I've grown to like them much better. Had to make peace with them. I used to be terrified of bees. Bee Spirit number 7, sweet results await. What does Bee Spirit have to tell us? The Bee Spirit's message is that sweet rewards are on their way if you are willing to get your ego out of the way and immerse yourself in the connected energy of all things. Bee Spirit knows not to let a sense of being a separate self get in the way of good things. Spirit is always producing honey. Miracles and magic are everywhere. When you connect with the great hive, you are vibrating and buzzing in exquisite harmony with all. Bee Spirit asks that your focus be on connectivity. Your heart, your body, and your soul and your psyche experience total interconnectedness and a true integration when you self-forget. When you remember that you are a part of a greater unified consciousness. Moving from separation into connection, from self-centered limitation to spirit-centered infinite possibility and potential, you become busy as a bee, enjoying the gifts of Bee Spirit, that is, being in the present moment. Fully in alignment with your highest expression of yourself, your heart opens and creativity rushes through you seemingly without effort as you experience that nothing feels like work. Industriousness is driven by enthusiasm and inner motivation, and time seems to fly by quickly as the hive supports you in the making of honey. Do you feel the presence of your helpers in the hidden realms adding their energy to your creations? Magical results are taking form and will be sweeter than you expect. Bee Spirit wants you to remember that your part in the divine partnership with the conscious universe is being rewarded, even if you can't see that yet, and asks that you share your good fortune, as there is plenty of honey for all. Be a part of the larger whole, the force that brings forth all that is sweet and delightful. And if you're having a rough time, here's your protection message from Bee Spirit. When Bee Spirit comes as your protector, she asks you to be very honest with yourself. Do you want to taste the sweet honey others have been making but you believe is unattainable for you? Do you wonder how others ended up with so much magical honey when you seem to have none? Have you bought into the illusion of separation and become convinced that you can't have what others in the hive enjoy? Do you separate from the hive to do it all on your own, or to hoard what honey you have, unwilling to trust that there is plenty of support and plenty of sweetness to go around? If you have been overworking and overdoing and have not given yourself any time to enjoy the sweetness of your life, Bee Spirit is telling you to stop and recharge. Perhaps you're afraid that if you don't get something done, it just won't get done. However, even busy bees need to take a break, and when they do, the honey still gets made. So remind yourself that sweetness is everywhere and available to you always when you need it. I would love to have some kind of magical, philosophical conclusion to share today, but I feel like the reading was so much of a conscious flow of this energy that I don't really think that there's anything else to say. And so this will be a shorter video this week, and as I said, sit in stillness and observation for periods of time, and then go out and enjoy yourself. Be who you have become. Let the world see who you are now. I wish you a fabulous, wonderful, lovely, loving, and sexy week. Bye.
Nobody does it better. Makes me feel sad for the rest. Nobody does it